Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the latest episode of the Business Spotlight podcast. I'm Darryn Gray from Darryn Gray Consulting, and in conjunction with the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, we are proud to bring you this podcast series. It's aimed at shining a spotlight on the incredible businesses within our Hutt Valley community. Now, in each episode, we chat to one local Hutt Valley business, uncovering their unique stories, their innovative practices, and the amazing contributions they make to our region. Now, we try and do the podcast unedited so we can get to meet the real people behind the business and have real conversation, albeit in a short time frame. So if you hear or see the odd mistake, just go with it and enjoy. Now, today, we're thrilled to introduce you to Dan Moth from One Good Thought. Now, I read somewhere that Dan describes himself as an advertising creative director and writer with 25 years experience in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Australia, and on global accounts. Or if you apparently want the LinkedIn version, Dan is a traditional maverick who uses research-driven nous to incredulize your brand's market share and pivotability. Now, Dan, there were some big words in there for a Monday morning, so I'm really curious. Can we start, welcome, and can we start by just unpacking a little bit? You're a copywriter, so what does a copywriter do?
Yeah, kia ora koutou, ko Dan Moth talking awa. It's great to meet you all. As Darryn has said, I'm Dan Moth from One Good Thought. The copywriter thing it's an enigma because I can point to a TV commercial that I've written and say, I wrote that. Oh, that's cool, but are you also the guy that puts the little C in the little circle after the name of a movie, like that kind of copywriting? And I say, no, it's actually just writing stuff for commercial creativity. So there's obviously writing advertisements, all sorts of ad campaigns that you would have seen in the past if you watched the Greg Grover from Nova ads. I wrote all of those. In its core, it's matching a message to an audience, finding out what a client really, really wants to say, but they're unable to say themselves, and finding out how their audience needs to hear it. And then understanding those two things and using creativity to make a message that really sticks, something that's really memorable.
Right. Okay. Oh, that sounds really cool. So can you tell us a little bit about your ideal client? And you've started touching on it, but who's your ideal client and the problem that you help people solve?
Well, my ideal client has really, really changed because I used to work in the big advertising agencies, and the clients there would be the big brands or the big government departments. But what I'm doing the same thing now, but I'm doing it for local business. So my ideal client will be anyone who wants their brand kind of defined or strengthened, or they want their brand put out there to the public, or they want their brand sort of crystallized in a way that their people, their own organization can get behind and be really, really proud of. Or anyone who thinks they need to be out there talking about what they do in a crowded, competitive marketplace. I've worked for a lot of Māori organizations who want to express their kaupapa, how that shapes their brand and their operations and what they do.
That sounds really cool. So you would be getting right to the heart of some of the conversation about helping people really unpack the who they are, what makes them tick, some of those values and beliefs and stuff like that, wouldn't you?
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's a big part of what I do. A lot of companies have their own values that have shaped over time based on who they are, how they roll, what they do, what's important to them. But often they need those expressing in a way that's really, really sticky and really emotional. And, I often write sort of values for companies and help them go, yes, that's often the most rewarding part of the job, when they go, yes, you've captured it. This is us. We couldn't write this for ourselves, but this is how we see ourselves and how we want to move forwards.
Nice. So you've now, I think, fairly recently gone out on your own. What inspired you to start your business and to do that?
I think it was just time to do so. Like, I've worked in the like Saatchi and Clemenger and those big advertising agencies, and they're great. Like, I've done some really, really meaningful work, won lots of awards, had amazing experiences and that sort of thing. But I wanted to do that for myself, and I wanted to do that locally rather than the big brands like Ford and Coca-Cola. I've worked for them, but I want to do it for local brands, and I think that's another really rewarding part of the job, is bringing that big agency thinking to organizations that wouldn't normally knock on the door of a big agency. Bringing that expertise to them, and it's making a real difference to the companies that I've been working for.
That's nice. So you've started touching on what are the most rewarding parts about running your business. And I know when we had a coffee catch up the other day, I was just sitting there listening in awe in terms of the stuff that you do and the way that you go about it, do it. So what's the most rewarding part for you?
I honestly think it is. It's bringing big agency thinking and skills to smaller companies who might not think that, okay, that's where we need to go to get those skills. Or if they do, they think, oh, we couldn't possibly afford that. But I'm able to bring that big agency thinking without the big agency price tag. And just really getting to understand who these businesses are, what's important to the company, to their customers, and then giving them ad campaigns or websites or brochures or whatever it is that they need to help them articulate and tell that story. And working with a lot of Māori businesses as well, which is great because they're so different to the Western mindset of how a business operates. They will have, the business is so much bigger. There's the iwi, there's the whānau that work in there, and then there's the kaupapa they all abide by, and it's helping them express that. That's enormously rewarding as well.
Oh, look, it sounds fascinating, and I'm looking forward to some, another conversation with you myself. But we talked about before, and you've touched on it a couple of times, I think, the personal values, the principles that guide us in what we do and how we go about our business and our decision making, and particularly as small businesses. So I'm really curious, what's a personal value or principle that guides you in what you do?
That's a great question, and that's something that all businesses claim, but I think the bigger the business, the harder it is for them to really knuckle down and articulate those values. For me personally, I've tried to whittle it down to 3 words. It's creativity, obviously, because I'm advertising creative. Curiosity, that drive to find out about a business, what's important to them, what story do they want to tell, what information do audiences need to hear. And then the third one, my third most important value would be care. Like I really, really genuinely care about the people that the companies that I work with, their audiences. I've worked for a lot on big education accounts, and that's really meaningful work because these are people's lives, and that level of care that I bring to everyone, it comes through in what I write for the brand. You can tell that it's the brand is really, really passionate about what they do and the people that they help. And it's,
you must have some. Sorry, man. You must have some amazing conversations with people.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when we were handed the job, when I was in an agency for Education New Zealand, Trade and Enterprise had just launched the New Zealand positioning, which was open to the new. And they said, okay, we need the education version of that. And we thought we have to do something that couldn't be for anybody else. It has to be for New Zealand. So the idea that we came up with, based off open to the new, was think new. And what that let us do was any New Zealand difference became a virtue. We could say, there's this amazing landscape, there's this amazing biculturality between Pākehā and Māori. All these things are new. You won't get that anywhere else. And that sort of helps build a picture of the New Zealand education system, and it set them apart. It really made a massive difference and put them far ahead of all the other, they call it education destinations like America, Canada, the US, Europe, England, who were talking sort of very general terms, and everything's about academic excellence and university rankings, which is important, but it wasn't distinctive. And it was those creative conversations we had about, okay, what can we do to really position New Zealand that got us to that point?
That's amazing. So there were 3 C's there, right? Let's touch on that. I heard, let's see how good my memory is. There was care, there was curiosity, and creativity. Did I get them right? Cool, sure. That's amazing. And the uniqueness there, I think what I heard you really talking about was that digging deep to find out what's the thing that's unique within that.
Yeah.
So what's one thing then, do you think, Dan, that about your business and about what you do that might surprise people?
I think, I'm obviously, this is the beginning of a sales pitch, of course, but I think the difference that creative thinking can make, I think that's something that will surprise people. I mean, my company's called One Good Thought. And the reason for that is that one good thought is all it takes. When you have that everything can kind of be balanced on, everything else just happens naturally. It flows. You know what the next ad campaign is going to look like. You know what the tone of voice is. You know what the brand kind of values are. That when you have that one organizing thought, that one principle, everything flows out from there. So I think people are often surprised that when you have that, it just makes sense of everything else. Like it's okay, right. That sort of ties back to our values. That sort of involves our company history. It aligns everything. It gives you kind of like it gives the business a brand compass, I think.
Right. Like an anchor point?
What was that? Sorry?
Like an anchor point?
Yeah, very much so. Like something you can always sort of come back to.
Nice.
I mean, it's just the kind of, that's the Western equivalent of what would be, say, a kaupapa or whakatoki, or something that is this deep, embedded, unique truth, I think. The other thing that would tend to surprise people at what I do is that it's not as expensive as you might imagine. I mean, the advertising agencies, and they're suffering for it now, is the length and the expense of their process. But I can sort of, being a person of one, sometimes I bring in other people like art directors or producers.
Sure.
But I can, the majority of it is just sort of one person, you know?
Yeah. And I guess then you can customize that and build the one-on-one relationship stuff in terms of what you do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when that level of care comes in as well. That really, it's, you know, it's someone else's business, but I approach it as if it was mine and I had skin in the game, and it's absolutely, it is life and death, the success, you know, of what I supply to people. It has, you just have to have that level of care, which would be anything I'd say to other businesses starting out, is care like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
That's what you'll be known for. And that will always put daylight between you and AI.
Right. Excellent. So hindsight, I mean, gosh, you know, I know personally, you know, I'm getting to the vintage that hindsight is just an amazing thing. But if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice around what you do, what would it be and why?
I think when I was younger, I probably struggled a little bit with confidence. I mean, I'm good at having creative ideas, but then there's this sort of, which I think every creative has, is a level of uncertainty. My advice would be to not doubt.
Right. So a little bit like give it a go, try it, do it anyway.
Totally. And that's something I you know, I sort of dealt with years ago. You know, the voice of doubt soon went away. But to my young self, that's what I'd say. I'd also probably tell myself not to sell my 1974 Holden Kingswood HQ, because now I'd probably be 40 grand. It was all original, nice condition.
Nice. I had a 62 Datsun Bluebird that probably was not in the same league, but I have the same feeling. You know, I needed to get rid of it at one point in time, but I look back now and go, oh, was that the right call?
If you go to Cars Inc., that car museum in Upper Hutt, they have, I think it's a Datsun 120Y in there.
Oh,
which
right.
is, with all cars, how's that now considered a classic? That 64 Bluebird, yeah, that'd
It was amazing. It was cool, but not in the league as your one. Hey, one of the things we talked about when we had a coffee a couple of weeks ago was that you know, there's no doubt at the moment it's challenging times for people like yourself and I. We're solopreneurs, doing what we do because we're really passionate about what we do. But I know that for myself, I've got to really work hard on my well-being and, you know, keeping focused and stuff. What's something that you do to sort of keep your well-being kind of in check and stuff like that as somebody that's working for yourself?
That's I mean, that's a hugely important question, because like you said, that is something that everybody struggles with. My well-being actually took a big boost when I went freelance, because when I was working in agencies, you'd work every hour God sends, you know, like crazy hours. And I wish I'd sort of stopped doing that sooner. So that took a real hit on my physical and mental health. Working freelance now, you know, I haven't woken up to an alarm clock for about 18 months. It's great. No commuting, none of the you know, the pressures of working in an agency and being part of a big global network and the demands that come with that. But it's important just to move a little bit. And everyone says that, and it's easy to kind of think, oh, let's, you know, surely there's got to be something more important. But just just get up and move. And it's like my view out my window, I look straight into beautiful Ngāhere, like the forest around here. So the green space thinking helps.
Yeah, true. I went for a beautiful walk along the river this morning, and it just set the scene for the week beautifully, I think. The other thing that we touched on is we're both chamber members. We're both members of the Hutt Valley Chamber, and we're reasonably new members, I think. I'm probably coming up to about 18 months. So what do you see as being a real benefit of belonging to something like a Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I'm loving being a member. It's because when I left advertising, I've got 30 years worth of contacts, but that's within advertising. There was nothing outside of it. And it's like, oh, I want to work for these local businesses, but I don't know any of them. So in terms of just the different ways that it introduces me to businesses and opened my eyes to their operating world, it's been fantastic. And they put on all sorts of really good learning opportunities. There's lots of sort of expertise that's shared. It enabled us to meet, and then you to invite me to do this podcast. So that's another example. And the way they advocate for business, it kind of feels like there's someone out there that's got your back.
Yeah.
That's really important, because you're not like I say, a lot of businesses are facing challenges, but you're not alone. I think that's
Yeah. There's that real value in the networking and feeling that you're part of something, isn't it?
On my desk, I've got my certificate of membership.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Mine's up on the wall next to me. You can't see it, but it's there. It's in a nice frame. So, Dan, if people want to get hold of you to chat a little bit about what you do, or they've got something and going, that sounds really cool, I really need a hand with that. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they could send me an email at onegoodthoughtnz@gmail.com, or just look for Dan Moth on LinkedIn. I think there's another Dan Moth that works somewhere in the States who does something to do with software, but it's not him.
Oh, right. Okay, you got to look for the
I just make software. Whatever it is, I'll just make it worse.
Excellent. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this month's Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight podcast. We've been talking to Dan Moth from One Good Thought. Dan, can you just remind us where was it they need to go again to find you, or how do they get in contact?
My email is onegoodthoughtnz@gmail.com, or just look me up on LinkedIn, Dan Moth.
Nice. You've been listening to the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight podcast. Thanks for joining us, and remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Chamber's streaming channels for more fascinating insights. I'm your host, Darryn Gray from Darryn Gray Consulting, your local Hutt Valley learning designer, facilitator, and ICF credentialed coach.